Today we're diving into The Last of Us Backlash, a weird scene in Andor that's got theory up against the ropes with his own fans, and a Clint Eastwood film I've never seen that I'm dubbing the adult Indiana Jones. And we're going to finish off the spicy YouTube comment that you've really got to hear. Sit back, relax, and we're going to get to all of it right now. Let's start off with The Last of Us Backlash. I think that this is an interesting thing that's happened. I think that everybody that kind of knows, I don't want to give too many spoilers. I do think that everybody who does watch The Last of Us or has played The Last of Us knows what's happened. But I kind of wanted to have a quick discussion about this. I've heard a lot of people argue over the last 10 years, basically since, I guess, the last 8 years, basically since Luke Skywalker's death, that it's okay for characters to regress. It's also okay to kill off main characters. And I understand that a lot of people feel this way that are fans of the second Last of Us game. But the problem is that I think that right now in Hollywood, where everybody in Hollywood kind of has their head up their own ass. And what I mean by that is the problem isn't that they're not talented writers. I think we actually misdiagnose the problem often whenever we talk about how people are terrible writers, they're writing terrible stuff. They are writing terrible stuff, but not because they're not talented. It's more because they're too interested in their own version of what they think is a good story, and they're not concerned enough with what the fan wants, with what the customer wants. And we've really gotten away from that. I think in Hollywood specifically, the people that are there, if you spend so many years, you go to college, you hear from your parents, in the workplace, you surround yourself with all of these people, and all of you all agree on the same things, on the same political ideologies, on the same anti-corporate message of rich people are evil and I should be allowed to express myself however I want to. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should. And I think that's kind of what we're running into here. Star Wars definitely has that problem where the customer is what it is that drives this movie franchise forward. And the customer hasn't been satisfied now for a decade. And the same thing is happening in The Last of Us, where you have the first Last of Us. This is before DLC, okay? I'm going to go ahead and say it. So go ahead and hate in the comments. I don't care. Before DLC, The Last of Us is one of the greatest games ever made. And it legitimately is. It's real. It's raw. You cannot get away from the fact that this game was just made with a real set of characters in mind, right? This is a father-daughter survival story, and it's done so well. And the main character, the person that everybody who loved this game identifies with, is Joel. And when you kill him at the beginning of the second game, you've decided that all of those people that love that character, they don't matter to your story anymore. They don't matter anymore, that the customer doesn't matter. And people have been warning about this forever. And again, you can kill Joel, just like you can have Khaleesi be evil and she can fall and she can kill everybody, but you have to draw it out. You have to make people believe it and buy it. You have to get them prepared for it. And the shock and awe doesn't always work. And sometimes if people have been attached to a character, let's say for an entire length of a pretty long game, and then you kind of promise them that this person is going to be in the next game, and then you subvert expectations, to use a common phrase to describe all of the screw ups that have been happening in franchises today. This is something that's a mistake. This is something you shouldn't be doing. So I think that, I'd love to hear what your comments are on this. I do genuinely think that the problem here is that there's not enough care given to why it is these characters matter and why they matter to people, and why sometimes as a writer, as a creator, you need to get out of your own way and realize that maybe you're not as brilliant as you think you are. Maybe you're not as smart as you think you are. Maybe your stories aren't as good as you think they are. And maybe, just maybe, we go into older forms of storytelling, things that have been objectively true for thousands of years. Read those books. And when people say, well, you just keep, you add something new. Okay, that's true, add something new, but bear something in mind is that these ancient stories that people have loved forever is a reason why Star Wars is as good as it is. The original 3 films, even the prequel films, it is about ancient myth that's been retold. The Last of Us is a father-daughter survival story that is as old as time. There's a reason why these stories work. And a story about some overgrown supersonic woman that beats Joel's head in with a golf club while Joel's adopted lesbian daughter is watching is not something that's classic literature. It just isn't.
I'm gonna be a Dad.
So it's not mythos. So anyway, I guess my point is that a lot of times these writers, they kind of need to get out of their own. They need to get out of their own way, and they need to get their head out of their ass. So tell me what you think about that. We're going to move on. So let's first start off with some of the comments that are being said about Theory in response to the video that he made the other day, and what I think he's right about and what I think that he's doing wrong about all of this. This is in response to the video titled, "I'm Not Covering Andor Anymore." And it starts off, and we're going to start off with the top comment that says, "I'm so glad that Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader have a strong stance against sexual assault. These guys are really making the galaxy a better and safer place." This is some of the more tepid comments, actually. Duffman X2000 says, "Anybody else watch the best Star Wars content in 20 years last night?" And that came out 3 days ago. This was obviously in response to the really, the last 3 episodes that came out that, everybody's kind of talking about and saying, basically feeling vindicated for the slow burn of these last 6 episodes that admittedly are not that good. They're really boring. And this kind of, churns it up, and it's really exciting and people are really excited about it. And I definitely understand all of that. This is from Coach Tom16 says, "Dude, your Star Wars theory. People want to know your honest take on anything Star Wars. This is what you signed up for." And I'm going to say to Coach Tom16, I don't know whether or not that's 100% true. I don't think that anybody should be blaming the fans. The fans are the fans. They're going to be what the fans are. There's no way you're ever going to get away from that. I actually think that's one of the bigger problems with how Disney handles everything, and one of the bigger problems of how Fury is handling this right now. But they don't necessarily want to hear your opinion when you disagree with the masses. And this is where people that are kind of this anti-woke or anti-Disney movement that's been going on for the last 8 years or so, that's really where we have to stand apart from how Disney handled it, right? You're not always going to agree with your fans. You're just not. You're going to have a take, and it's not always going to be popular. And your take is going to be based off of your perspective of how you like and don't like content. For instance, there are stances that I have on Rebels. I've said many times, I love Rebels. I love Star Wars Rebels. I think it's probably the best thing that Star Wars has made with Disney behind it. And so many people disagree with me on that. And there are a few people that do agree with me on that, but there's so many people that disagree with me on that. I watched that show with my kids. I definitely think that they did such a great job on that. It was the reason why I had so much hope for Dave Filoni, and all that hope's faded now. But anyway, we're going to move on from that. This is from Cadmus204, says, "Let's have some Star Wars for adults." No, not like that. Edit episode 8 to 9 are literally peak Star Wars content. It's really a shame that you won't be watching them. And I keep kind of hearing this word sort of associated with what Andor is. The community that loves Andor uses the word peak a lot. This is peak Star Wars content. This is from Davlinsky, says, Young Jedi Adventures is more your speed." There's a bunch in here that are calling him a crybaby, or that he's literally a baby. This is from Spralix or something like that. I don't know how to say that. Spralx says, "Homie would definitely fall for a Jedi mind trick. Andor's for adults. Theory is a toddler. It's only natural he doesn't like Andor." So some of the things that he's right about. So in this video and other videos, Star Wars Theory has talked about this. Is not something that I talked about, where the majority of people in the YouTuber space, right? I'm not talking about the people that comment on YouTube. I'm not talking about the fans. I'm talking about the YouTuber space, the people like Star Wars Theory, the people like Film Threat, the people like Geeks and Gamers. A lot of these guys that have been around for a while, when they talk about Andor, there's kind of an interesting consensus where the majority of them seem to not, or at least of the 20 or so people that I watch on a regular basis, and these are it's the group of people that are sort of anti-woke Star Wars, film critics in general, seem to agree that Andor isn't Star Wars. But some of them do agree that it's good, and some of them straight up don't like it. But it does seem to be something that the majority of them do agree with. There are a handful of them out there that do like it. Snarky J likes it. Robot Head obviously is coming around to these last episodes. So there are people out there that do like it on the sort of anti-woke Star Wars YouTuber space. But at the same time, they do have this kind of consensus that it's not Star Wars. So it is this interesting place where the people that have been at the forefront of this fight against Disney are now in a place where they don't agree with their own fans. And some of them do. Like I said, you can go and you can watch them. There's a lot of people that are kind of, I would say that they're not necessarily coming around. They're just admitting that something is good when it is good, and telling you that it's crap when it is crap. And there is this community of people that really does like Andor, that is very vocal. And I get the comments myself when I say that it's not Star Wars, but I like it. And you can see the comments. You can go to the videos that I've said that it's not Star Wars, and people just tell me that I'm dead wrong. I get ratioed into oblivion. But the problem of what Theory's doing is that he's blaming the fans, and you should never be doing that. That's what Disney has done for the last 8 years, is what Disney's done for the last 10 years. And that's really where things have gone wrong. You're not always going to agree with your fan base, and you're not always going to like the comments that they say when they don't agree with you. And you do have to be able to move on from that. So I would, if I were to give him advice, I seriously doubt I was ever going to watch this video, but if I were to give him advice, you always double down on your opinion if you really believe it. Just double down on it, but you never blame the fans. You're not going to agree with them all the time. You're going to come from a different perspective. You're going to come from a different place than everybody else does. The majority of people, when they like something, there's a reason why they do. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's good. I, for one, am not a big Marvel fan. I think that the 10 years of Marvel's quote unquote golden era actually ruined cinema. In some ways it helped to save it because people weren't going to the movie theater, but I do think that it dumbed down movies. For probably the next 30 or 40 years, we are going to have movies that are more about explosions and less about characters. To give Andor props, it definitely is more character based. It definitely is better storytelling. I still don't like some of the little woke check marks that are put in there, and people will tell me, well, it's not that big a deal. It always is to me. I don't like any of it, but it's still a good show. If I were to give anybody advice in this particular realm, especially Star Wars Theory in this particular regard, because he is getting ratioed by his own people, I would say double down on your opinion, but come back every single day and say it. Like, I don't agree with it. You guys can like it. I can dislike it, and it's okay. We can have this disagreement, but I don't blame you. You're definitely wanting, better Star Wars content, and that's what this is. So anyway, that's my opinion on this. I want to know what you think in the comments. Does Star Wars Theory need to handle this better? Is he handling it correctly? Do you think that the fans hold some kind of a culpability of what it is that they say? Anyway, let me know what you think. Let's move on. I want to talk about something that I really enjoyed. I watched a movie that funnily enough, we're talking about, adult Star Wars. This is actually kind of an interesting, this is adult Indiana Jones, right? I was kind of turned on to this. I watched a video a long time ago from Andrew Clavin, who is a person whose opinion, besides his opinion about Star Wars, his movie opinion is one that I really respect. And he was talking about, the archetype of, sort of professor / person who goes out in the world and does all these cool things. That archetype was kind of built by this movie, The Eiger Sanction. It was directed by Clint Eastwood, and it's starring Clint Eastwood. It's really an interesting movie. It definitely is dated. There's a lot of sort of interesting bits of tokenism that are kind of, little check marks at the time that you see very obviously in the movie. There's also very obvious things that just wouldn't work today, like certain racist jokes and, certain bad guys that are painted as bad guys just because they say racist things or they say things about women or something like that. While at the same time, the main character is very obviously, what you would call a modern day red pill bro. So, it's an interesting sort of thing. But the movie itself is a lot of fun. Some of the dialogue, again, is really, really on the nose, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's about a professor who used to be a hitman who gets called by the government to go and do another hit, which is what they call a sanction. And he has to do it on the Eiger Pass mountain. I can't remember what it's called, but he has to go and find this person and he has to kill them. And he's doing it, to avenge an old comrade. So it's a very interesting, movie. There's a lot of fun to it. There's a lot of that kind of nice 70s style of filming. There's a lot of slow zooms and a lot of amazing camera work that you just don't get today when they focused very heavily on the shot setup without computer animation, which I definitely enjoyed. And there's some really good performances from a couple of people, though for the most part, it's almost like, as ridiculous as a buddy comedy without a buddy cop comedy without the buddy. It's just Clint Eastwood kind of going around kicking ass and sleeping with chicks at every single turn for no reason at all. These girls just throw themselves at him and there's no reason why. It's almost like James Bond, except for the seduction's not there. It's almost too ridiculous, but I still enjoyed it. I totally give it a 4 out of 5 for entertainment value, 3 out of 5 for critical value. So to wrap up this video, I want to talk about the worst offender. This is going to be the person who commented on some of my videos or one of my videos and said some egregious or very stupid things. This can be from any point. I do want to pull things from newer videos or at least newer comments. But at any point, if I see a really good comment when I go back through my comment section, I'll pull it out and want to talk about it. This is going to be the worst offender, the person who said something that was, the most terrible or egregious or most ridiculous thing that came out of somebody's mouth or fingers when they typed it in the comment section. This comes from Dr. Joshua Perry, and this is in reply to Why Mary Sues Are Dumb. It's a short that I made. I think that it's actually a clip that I made from a larger video where I talk about the Mary Sue, but it said, why are Mary Sues dumb? And then he said, and yet, Mary, the mother of Jesus, most certainly did exist and ticks all of the boxes. Funny about the name choice, huh? I'm assuming, maybe I'm wrong here, and Dr. Joshua Perry, if you watch this video, then by all means you can respond. I'm assuming that you mean that Mary, the mother of Jesus, is a Mary Sue. I'm also assuming that you're equating the name to Mary because it's some kind of a play on it being Mary, the mother of Jesus. Ridiculous, completely. It's not the case at all. Now he is right about one thing. It says Mary did absolutely exist, and she did. This is historically a fact, whether you're a believer or not. But Mary, the mother of God, Mary, the mother of Jesus, she definitely was not a Mary Sue. Absolutely not. She was a dutiful wife. She was a dutiful mother. And even though there's the times when Jesus does relent to what his mother tells him to do when he turns the water into wine, it's ridiculous to think that Jesus would, or that anybody would just relent to what, Mary is saying in this kind of Mary Sue kind of way. In no way is she ever portrayed in the Bible as being somebody who's telling people what to do. In no way is she ever portrayed in the Bible as being somebody who's just capable of everything, anything and everything. That's a ridiculous statement. I'm not entirely certain. And maybe that's not what you meant. That kind of seems like it's what you meant, but not a Mary Sue. She doesn't check all the boxes. She doesn't have a pandering cast around her. That's certainly not the case. Her son was murdered in front of her by her own people. So that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous statement. And when it comes to the name choice, if you watch the entire video, I actually talk about where the name actually comes from. And it's coined by Paula Smith in a Star Wars fan fiction story I'm pretty sure it's called Mary Sue, and it comes from a fanzine that had come out back in the, I think it's in the 80s, maybe the 70s. I'd have to go back into my video and watch and see what the history was that I pulled up. I don't remember everything, but anyway, it has nothing to do with Mary, the mother of Jesus. It's a very common name. I think it's one of the most common female names on earth. So kind of ridiculous there too. But anyway, that's all I got for you today. I'm going to try to get back with you next week. I'm going to try to do this thing where I try to make these unscripted videos that kind of wrap up the kind of stuff that's happened over the course of the week or the last couple of weeks and talk about some interesting things in order to kind of keep contact with my viewers. I do have more traditional Germexican content coming out. I have a scripted piece that I'm almost done writing that's going to be about Darth Vader. Very excited about that one. I've been working on this one for months. And then I have another one that I've already recorded. I'm already editing that talks about a time before Disney. And these are going to be more, they're a little more scripted, or they're at least a little cleaner. And the entire purpose of those videos is going to be to have high editing video essay kind of style. That's the reason why I got into this in the first place. But I wanted to be able to do something like this where I didn't have a lot of editing to do and I could just get this out and talk to the audience as much as possible. But anyway, please leave your opinions in the comments about the things that we talked about today. And I hope I've earned your subscription. I'm the Germexican. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.